Got it set for 1 hour?
Yep, we're going. Okay. So you got to start with
I wish I knew where I stopped.
you stopped with Lynn moving to Kitchener, and then Uncle Kenny living in Atlanta.
Kenny was in Atlanta for 5 years when he got
So
promoted.
you and Grams didn't. You guys weren't like, why did he move down there by himself?
Well, he went down there because we had a recession here in '83. And there was nothing going. They wanted 2 years experience. In fact, that one place Tyler called and wanted 2 years experience.
Okay, so
So how the hell do you get experience? Nobody gives you a chance.
no, I know, I understand.
Same thing with Ken.
So he moved down to Atlanta.
Atlanta with a friend.
And what did you and Grams think? I just
Well-
want to know more, like your guys' perspective.
Oh, we weren't very happy about it, but we were excited that when he called and there were a lot of job offers in the paper, and he had a couple of interviews, and for a while he took a job doing telemarketing. I remember he hated
really?
it, but yeah, he did that about 3 months. Then he saw this ad about a packaging engineer degree, and that's what he had. So he met the guy at the Atlanta airport, Charlie Warr, who him and his wife Rosemary loved Kenny. I mean, they thought the world of him. And
So he met some guy down there.
out of 6, 7 salesmen, Kenny's the one they moved up.
So who did he move down there with?
A guy by the name of from Grosseal named Scott Herron, Herron.
Were they buddies?
Yeah, they were. I don't know where they met, but they weren't buddies in Trenton. You know, he met him after he graduated. I think he met him at the airport where he worked nights.
So before moving down to Atlanta, Uncle Ken worked nights.
He worked nights for Zantop Airlines, loading
Sandtop?
Zantop. I got him a job there because my boss, who liked me, made me a lieutenant. He took security over for Zantop.
Oh, and he
And
had,
back then, that was a big operation.
yeah, he had.
I mean, they were flying every couple of days auto parts, and they only flew at night. You know, on kind of commercial traffic. These pilots would go at night out of Willow Run.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny worked there all summer. Come September, he went down to Atlanta with Scott, saw all the ads. He called us. Hey, Mom, send my suit down. There's all kind of jobs here. I'm gonna stay here and interview. Which she did.
Oh, so his plan was just more temporary. So you.
Well, his plan was not to, just to go down for a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Because Scott's family were Southern. They were from Riverdale, Atlanta.
Oh, so he was just visiting down there.
He just was visiting down there. And when he saw that paper, I think Atlanta Constitutional or something.
Wow, so he really just made a decision like that. Like,
Yeah,
he's visiting, screw it. I'm
Well,
gonna
he
stay
said
down.
a lot of job offers here,
Yeah.
In fact, Scott, who didn't graduate from college, but he was kind of he was a little bit like Brent Honeywell, kind of an attitude. 6'1", great baseball player. He could have made it, but everything was fun and games. And Scott he wound up being a UPS driver.
Oh. So Kenny was down in Atlanta,
Yeah,
and then
and he got hired in Atlanta.
and my mom and dad were in Michigan, just starting to get. They were
Wow.
like out of college then.
They must have. I
Getting
can't
getting out
remember.
of college. So they got married shortly. I mean, when Mom went to Detroit Mercy, we'll start with that. Like, you were just happy about her getting a scholarship there?
Oh yeah, it was super. Because none of the kids, when they were young, talked about being a nurse or a doctor or anything.
And did you and Graham, not push things, but did you both? Were you like, oh, did you have a lot of aspirations? Do you think you were influential on them?
Well, we were influential, especially Grandma. College education. Because at one point, when Kenny was about halfway through Michigan State, one of his buddies, and still buddies, right now big buddies, Rick Owen, was working for a steel mill. He said, Ken, they're paying me $21 an hour. Why don't you, quit school, come with me, like Scott did.
And that was a lot of money back then, right? In the
$21 an hour is big.
Yeah.
Well, the steel mill paid big. You know. Next, after the steel mills,
So, and you and Graham were like, no, you're not.
oh,
doing it.
Grandma had a talk with him.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I remember that they were in the living room and she was telling him, listen, you got 2 years in, you're not going to waste that working because it's big money. What's your future over there? And guess what? 8, 9 years later, that steel mill folded.
Would
It
you
is-
remember what the steel mill was?
Yeah, McLeod Steel.
McLeod.
I had stocks in it. I lost my butt. I didn't have much. $1,000. Because they were doing good.
Right.
Selling steel to the automotive industry. But things change.
So you guys were. So when Mom was a nurse, when she was like, hey,
Grandma, his mom told him, you're not quitting school. You ask him, he'll tell you about that meeting. And then he decided, changed his mind. I'm going to stick it out. And he did. Took him 5.5 years, but he graduated.
wow, it really took him 5.5.
4.5, I'm sorry,
4.5.
4.5. Yeah, he went an extra 6 months.
Yeah,
That's why he graduated in December instead of June.
So then Mom was in nursing school, and you guys were happy that she chose to be a nurse, though.
Oh, yeah, we were tickled pink because Lynn was doing so well. She had a good steady income. She had a brand new car. Dated a couple of guys till she met Mr. Wonderful, Joe Perzinski.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
So then Mom graduates. You remember where she got a job?
Mom graduated and I can't remember exactly. I wish Grandma was here. I thought her first job was with
Henry Ford?
Henry Ford Hospital in Dearborn. That's what I thought.
And then her and my dad got married shortly after that, right? When they...
Yeah, I thought so. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I know it was a big wedding. Lynn had a big wedding in Allen Park. Your mom and dad, we had a big reception over in Southgate.
What do you remember of my dad when he was younger? What did you think when they were dating? Were you like, yes, no, iffy
I
on
thought
it?
it would fizzle out.
Oh, really?
He was real bashful. He'd come to the door, knock on the side door. Grandma would answer the door all the time. Is Lori home? Real kind of a quiet voice and bashful.
And you thought that was going to fizzle out?
No, I just thought it was part of dating,
Yeah.
But, they broke up for a while. Something like I didn't, Grandma and I.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped dating for a while, and we dated other people, and got back together. And
Did you help them out with their weddings? Like, were you and Graham involved in the kids' weddings? My mom and Lynn.
oh
Like,
yeah,
what was that process like? Cause
yeah. Joe's parents, as you know, had nothing. Because usually, the bride's parents pretty much runs the wedding, which I learned, and we expected some help from Perzinski's. We got zilch. She never made it. They never owned anything. His mother and dad. It was always rental. But with Mr. Crimmins now, I'm talking about the Mr. Crimmins, your grandpa Crimmins.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his wife stepped up and said, "Hey, we'll help you guys." So I don't know. I didn't get involved with it. Grandma handled everything with Nona.
Oh, really?
And
You were not. You were.
No.
Did my dad ask you, "Hey, I want to marry your daughter"?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
Joe did, but I can't remember your dad. Maybe he did.
You just can't remember.
Back then, I graduated in '76 from college. I don't know. I can't remember, but I do remember Joe calling me up from Canada, saying, "Mr. Holner, I'm Joe Perzinski. I've been dating Lynn for 9 months, and we're
That's all they were dating for, 9 months.
something like that." Yeah. and they got engaged. They want to get married. So I talked to Lynn. I said, you know what you're doing? You know?
Oh, you remember that conversation?
Oh, hell yeah. I was against it. I wasn't happy with it.
Really? Why?
Well, she's an American married a Canadian living in Canada. I didn't want to live in Canada. I wanted to meet somebody and stay here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Kitchener's not an easy drive.
No, it's not.
You know, it's like here to Gaylord for me. And we used to go twice a month to see her.
You and Graham would drive that often to go visit her?
Yeah, to visit Lynn. Make sure she's okay.
Mm-hmm.
She had a job. You know, because she worked her butt off to become a nurse, all that studying, like Mackenzie. There's a lot to it.
So my mom...
But it worked out. So.
Yeah. So my mom graduates, she gets a job, Kenny's down in Atlanta,
Kenny's in Atlanta, single.
and Lynn is in Kitchener.
He was on a road a lot, Kenny was. He had a company car. And
Do you remember you and Grandma's lifestyle then in the mid-'80s? Like, empty nesting. Do you remember that?
Well...
Like, all the kids were out. What do you remember about that time?
I think I bought that property in Oscoda, like 81, 82. So we'd go up there in the summer, you know, my vacation, and when Grandma had time off. But Grandma never worked full time like, you know, some wives do. She always worked part time.
When she started working, was that... Because that wasn't typical for that time period, right?
Well, no, she started working when Lynn went in school and we needed the extra money for tuition and, you know, being a cop.
Oh, Lynn helped... You guys helped Lynn pay for school.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did she pay you guys back? Like, was that the
No,
agreement?
no.
It was just like you would help her out.
No.
Yeah.
Here's the tuition, Dad or Mom, and, you know, I need a check and blah, blah, blah. And
Oh, so
that's why Grandma went back to work back in the 70s.
I thought she worked as... Didn't she work in the cafeteria in the schools?
She worked in the cafeteria. She worked for the West Green Drugs for summer, making extra money. Never full time. It was always, you know, part-time hours, 3 days a week, whatever. Then she saw this ad in the paper about a dental assistant will train. She applied for that and got it.
Oh, it would train her. It was like
Yeah.
Okay.
So she did that, I think, 19 years?
Do you remember do you remember being like against it or for it?
Oh, no, I was for it.
Well, because I know some, you know, the sexism back then, you know, it's like women don't work, you know.
Her and I had a good relationship. We never talked about, well, don't do this or don't do that. I never ran her life. It was 50-50 in our marriage. And she come to me one day and says, I think I'm going to go to work. She says, money's tight. I said, yeah. And I worked part-time when I could. I did janitor work at night for 2 years. I drove dump truck at the steel mill, which paid good, $20 an hour.
And what was your mentality? You were just like, hey, we just need the money. I'm just going to work. That was your mindset.
Well, I was trying, but I did shift work back then. I didn't get promoted till, 1980, late 80s, when I moved up to lieutenant.
So you did a lot of shift work.
A lot of shift work.
And you just picked up the extra time when you could.
When I could, I delivered car parts. You know, when I worked afternoons and midnights, I'd go in for 4 or 5 hours, $15 an hour.
Wow, do you remember being tired back then? Like just
I
beat
remember
up?
that. Yeah, I liked it. I like to be on the road. Yeah, and the guy I worked for in Trenton, he had customers in Wyandotte, you know, small garages like starters and fuel pumps and, you know, extra spark plugs would drop off. So he needed us, you know, because he couldn't find anybody part-time. This guy.
So you and Graham were both...
And he liked cops, Mr. Gagne, nice guy.
And you were both working back then in like the early 80s,
yeah. Oh, yeah. But the funny part was, when I announced my retirement in 94, I asked your grandmother, I said, hey, hon, are you going to keep working? Nope.
Really?
Oh, yeah. She said,
tell me about that.
The day you retire, I'm retiring. And she did. I retired on a Friday, and she retired on a Friday.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, she come to my retirement party that Friday night.
You had a retirement party
90 people,
from
90 people showed up. You know, my brother, my cousin, you know,
Yeah.
Onion, Cibolas, and all that bunch.
Yeah.
Nona was there. Barney was already gone, her dad.
Wait, do you remember that? We talked about it a little bit before this, but what was that relationship like with Barney and Nona? You know, towards.
Oh, it was very good. Oh, we had no problem with them whatsoever. We'd take them on vacation a couple of times with us. Two for sure, I know. And then I had that property by Crystal Mountain back in the late
They
70s.
helped you pay for that, right?
No. I took a loan through my credit union. Because I told you the story.
Mm-hmm.
What happened a couple of years before I bought that property, my Uncle Vic bought some property in Gaylord on the lake. And he said, Bert, you ought to get in on this. He said, you know, once this develops, it's going to be worth some money. So I asked Grandma, nope, we don't have any money, extra money for property, forget it. Well, guess what? Vic bought 3 lots on the lake. Probably 2-3 years later, he sold 1 lot and paid all 3 of them off. The profit he made. And I could have been on that, and that stuck with me. So when I come across that property at Crystal Mountain, just by accident on a hunting trip, I found this 5 acres with a cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Needed work, but I remember the guy wanted $3,500 for it. 5 acres in a cabin, had electricity, no running water, no. I put all that in. I put running water in. It was 2 rooms. I divided into 3 rooms. I had a front room, kitchen, dinette. In the back was 2 bedrooms, shower, and toilet that we put in because it was vacant. All I had is a heater. You had to pump water with the old pitcher pump, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that all modernized because I was working extra part-time. But when I bought that property, Grandma was against that.
Really, what was that conversation like?
Well, the conversation was, her and I talked, says, hon, I found some property over there up in Crystal Mountain. Nice area. Water's, you know, clean drinking water and ski lodge 5 miles away. I said, I'm thinking about buying it. Well, we can't afford it. I said, hey, hold it. You know, we're not broke. I'm working extra. Let's see, was she working then? I can't remember.
So when did you buy the place in that's Oscoda then?
Well, you know, she said, well, I'm not signing any papers. I said, hey, no problem. I'm going to talk to the credit union and see what they say. So I went to the credit union and I said, hey, I need to borrow $3,500. No problem. Your credit's good as gold. When do you want the check? I said, well, as soon as I finalize the paperwork, and I hired a lawyer, young guy out of college, very, very smart, detailed guy.
Mm-hmm.
I call him up. He says, yeah. He said, I'll take the well, it wasn't a mortgage. It was a land contract. But I owed the credit union $35. And I paid him off.
What's the land contract?
It's an agreement like you don't need a mortgage. It's between 2 people that you agree such a length of time, making payments, stuff like that.
Okay. So you bought that place. You
Yeah.
don't remember the time frame? That was the early 80s?
I don't know. No, that was late 70s.
Late 70s. So you and Graham would go up there. So you fixed it up over
I went twice a month. I was up there, except in the winter. And Barney,
Really? Like
in
every
meet-
other week you were up there.
Yeah, I was driving my butt off
From Trenton.
Friday to not come home Sunday to the nearest town was called Copamish. The next town was called what? Frankfurt?
What do you remember doing up there? Just
I just
Like-
loved it. I mean, we put up insulation. And I had some black ants, I remember when I bought that place. As wood ants, they were eating my wood up. But back in the old days, a 2x4 was a true 2x4. The new ones
Oh,
when
hang
they
on,
come.
hang on. The memory card is. All right. So it was a.
So I had to get rid of that. I called it exterminator from Manistee, Michigan. He come out there. He worked for Sears. Nice guy, retired. He says, "Yeah," he said, "you got these carpenter ants are eating your wood." So we pulled some paneling off, and it wasn't too bad. It wasn't, like termites. They eat everything. All you got is just cellulose, or what do you call it? You know what I mean?
So you fixed that place up over the years. It was like you bought it, and then
It
over
took me
time.
like 2 years. First of all, we got rid of the ants. One of the things was there was no ventilation up through the attic. The cabin was like this style. Well, here was a door and entrance, but the peak was like this. There was no ventilation. He told me to cut a hole up here, because they make vents for that, and cut a hole on the other side.
So over time, you guys built
So
that.
I had to borrow a ladder up there and go up there with a saw, cut a hole, put the vent in.
Was Graham going with you on all these trips too? Was she
No,
always? She
not
would
all
stay?
the time. No, she'd only come up. Well, no, she did come up for skiing because we started skiing back then. Kenny got me into skiing.
Tell me about that. So that was that.
Oh my God!
Were you guys kind of like what?
Oh hell
You had
yeah!
never heard of it, right?
Nobody ever skied in my family. Well, what happened? Oh, it's another long story. You heard us talk about Ivan and Joyce Early.
Yes.
They had 2 kids, right? Their daughter Carolyn was born 6 hours before Aunt Lynn was born. Babies. Ivan just come out of the Navy, discharged. He was a machinist on a destroyer. I was stationed in Grosse Ile with the Naval Air, and we met. The girls met, and they hit it off real well. Joyce Early and Pat Olander hit it off. So when they got discharged, because they had to spend, like back in the old days, a couple of days in the hospital. So when they were there, they got to know each other, and they traded addresses and names. Said, "Hey, we got to get together." So Lynn and Carolyn were born in March. That Christmas time, Early's invite us over. Well, we did that for several years, and as time went on, Kenny came along, and we were friends for years with Early's.
Okay.
A couple of times, we exchanged kids. Kenny went over there, stayed a weekend, long weekend, during Christmas. And Carolyn would come over to our house and stay with Lynn. They were fairly decent friends. They're not now, but at one time they were young. Well, when Kenny was staying at Early's, they had the newspaper had a ski school free. All you had to pay for is your equipment at Mount Brighton in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, Mount Brighton was way back then. That was still.
it was one of the first ski lodges close to the Detroit area.
Yeah.
Everything else was past Bay City, way up north. But this guy had a big hill there, and he developed it. So Ken come home one day after the Christmas break, said, "Hey, Dad, I signed up for a ski school. How'd you like it?" "Yeah," he said, "I loved it." Something like you, a little bit, energetic. Boom. He says, the classes are on, I think it was Tuesdays or Wednesdays for 1 hour. It started at 7 and went to 8. So he said, "Hey, could you drive me down?" He said, "I got a couple more lessons to do." I said, "Yeah, I'll take you down." So after supper, him and I went. Grandma and Lynn didn't go, just Kenny and I.
How old was he at the time? You remember?
Well, he had to be
A teenager?
late teens,
Yeah.
yeah. Or middle teens, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I was early, well, around 50, I remember. Because I remember I took him to the school, and there was about 40 kids from all over. And I'm sitting there having a hot cocoa with this girl that, ran the place. She said, "Hey, mister, how come you're not skiing?" I said, "I don't ski. I never skied." "Hey, you in good health?" I says, "Yeah." She says, "No reason you can't learn to ski. You want me to sign you up?" So like a dumbbell, I
Yep.
sign up.
Yep.
Next week we went back. I was signed up, right? So I had to rent boots and froze my butt
So
off.
you were 50 years old. You were like
Roughly 50.
So like but like an adult. You were well into your adulthood.
I told you I was running back then.
Yeah.
5 days a week, 2 miles. Running and jogging.
So
And I was in good shape.
tell me about the skiing thing. Like
Oh my God. I liked it. The only thing I didn't like is that damn,
chairlift.
the chairlift. You got no bar across. I'm looking down. Holy shit. 20 feet, 30 feet in the air. And oh man. That's the only thing bothered me.
So you went by yourself the first time.
No,
so
with Kenny.
But Kenny was up there. But
Kenny
it
was
was
the
you
only one.
and Kenny.
Then I don't know how Lynn learned to ski. I think she went with a bunch of girls and learned it. Because she didn't go to school with me and Kenny. Me and Kenny went to
So
Detroit
you took
newspaper free press.
Yeah.
It was.
You took a lesson there.
I took a lesson, yeah, with the kids. There was like 3 adults and about 40 kids. They were learning, teaching us about your skis and how to walk in them. And eventually they had a little tow rope. It took us on a small hill.
So did you have fun? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember him telling us, what was that? You got to shift your weight. And I was good at that. You
Yeah.
skied. I picked it up pretty fast, and I kind of liked it. Mm-hmm. And I got Grandma to.
What was her?
The
Do you
girls
remember her experience? The first time she did it.
Oh, she was funny as hell. And that's the funny part, because when I met her, dated her, she was very athletic. I mean, there was not an ounce of fat on that girl. She was just lean and mean.
Really?
Oh,
'cause she
yeah.
played in sports, right, in high school.
She played basketball was her big thing. But she was always active, bumming around with girls and all that, and guys. So she was very
So she
active.
picked it up though.
Yeah. Lynn and Kenny were showing her how to snow plow. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we took her on this beginner hill, and the beginner hill, when I bought that property at Crystal Mountain, was a lot steeper than the little hill at Mount Brighton. Well, poor Grandma, she gets up on this hill, and she's coming down with Lynn and that, and Lynn is snow plowing, slowing down, and Grandma's still flying. And I remember, I'm in the parking lot watching her, and they're coming at me. And I heard the kids, "Mom, snowplow! Mom, snowplow!" Here she comes. She's trying to snowplow. She gets probably from here to the wall, from the edge of the parking lot, and boom, she falls over. I still remember that. That was so damn funny. Everybody's laughing at her. She's pissed off.
I bet.
She's this damn snow skiing. But
So you guys picked up skiing in late in
later
life.
on,
Yeah,
yes, later on.
life.
And I skied till probably, I quit right around 60, I think. By the time I retired, I got nobody to go with. Grandma was not really interested in it. She just went for the kids. Once the kids started leaving home,
Right.
because Lynn got her degree and moved to Ann Arbor. In fact, where we were. Remember that Washtenaw?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. As you
In
turn down,
Ipsy, right?
going east,
Yeah.
Yepsy. She worked at U of M. But as you turn down, no, she was working at St. Joseph's, where Mackenzie was. As you turn down, like you and I came out this way, well, I had to go that way, right? Past 23, east on Washtenaw. Well, if you only go down about a mile on the right, there's a group of apartments there. She lived there with 2 girls. There's 3 of them, shared it. Because we'd go see her once in a while. Grandma would bring her some food and stuff, but they were getting along good. Yeah, I remember that way back.
So you got how?
But everybody skied. Your ma took to it. She was a good skier. And so was Kenny.
So how long did you guys have that place by Crystal Mountain?
I must have had it 8 years,
So you sold it in the mid '80s,
early 80s.
early '80s.
And what had happened is,
Why did you sell it? What was that?
well, what happened is Ivan and Joyce, through one of their co-workers, bought a small cabin on the lake, Cedar Lake, Oscoda. When we talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
they were on East Cedar Lake, okay? Grandma and I, they asked us to come up for a weekend. Kids were all doing their own thing back then. That was early 80s, I think. 81, 82. So we go there for the weekend, and they had a boat net. We went out, and, we spent Friday night, Saturday night, come home Sunday. It was kind of nice on the water, compared to being in the woods, because I had 5 acres in the woods. I liked it, but Grandma, one tree, you see them all. Me, I love trees. I love the woods. Anyway, she says, "Hey, hon, you think we can someday buy a cottage?"
She brought
over
that
here?"
idea up.
She brought it up, and I liked it. We sat by the water, had drinks and snacks and that, and we loved it. It was, we never did that before. And while we were there, Ivan's friend came over. I can't remember Mal. His name was Melvin. Ivan worked with him for Detroit Edison. Mal came over and introduced himself, and now we got talking. "Hey, how do you like it up here?" I said, "I kind of like it." I said, "It's nice, living on a lake." He said, "Well, there's a friend of mine in the Lions Club that right across the lake there has got a place for sale if you're interested." I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, he said, "Well," he says, "maybe tomorrow." This was like on Friday night, or maybe the Saturday morning. We were having coffee when he came over. He said, "Hey, later on I'll call him up and see if you can come over and look at it." Mal's the one that pushed it a little bit. I was half and middle of the fence, didn't know what to do because I had to sell the property. So I went over there, and damn, I liked it. It was right on the water.
What lake was it on?
It's called Cedar Lake.
Cedar Lake, right?
Shallow. Deepest spot was like 18 feet, but it was muck. It was not a sandy bottom. Remember I told you that story about when we found this property, your mom and I and Grandma, in January, where I'm living now?
So Cedar Lake. So did you already sell the place by Crystal Mountain
No,
beforehand?
no, but that's how I sold it.
Mm.
I got excited about the lake living, and I called that guy up, and what did he want? He wanted $58,000, and it was a nice piece of property too. It was 80 foot on the water, real long driveway with woods in the middle. Because what had happened, he had this ranch home, and he was a carpenter. He built a big colonial right next to it, on the next lot. So, I don't know, one thing led to another, and I made him an offer, and he didn't take it at first. But about a month he called me back. Said, "Yeah, I think I offered him like 53, 54. He wanted like 58, 59. He said, I'll take it, but he says, I need a land contract with I think my payment was like $175 a month. And I figured working part-time I could swing it. But I had to get rid of this property. So as soon as we got a deal on that property, before it took me about 2 months to get everything in order to buy that place in Oscoda. Well, in between the 2 months, I sold, I got a real estate lady there by Crystal Mountain. And she says, "Well, there's always somebody, downstate, which is us, here, downstate.
Looking to buy up there.
Yeah, looking for up north property." She said, "Yeah, I'll list it for you." Well, guess what? I paid $3,500, right? I listed it for $18,000
So how that
in
was,
8 years. That's how property, like your dad's talking, me, property goes up. Things were good back then. People had extra money. Next thing you know, she calls me up about 2 weeks later. "I got a buyer." I says, yeah. She said, but it was a land contract. Like I had with this other property. I hadn't acquired it yet, but I agreed to, you know, this contract, and my lawyer was searching out the title. You know, like a car title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a title on property too,
Mm-hmm.
and he was working on that. So these people that wanted at my place were from Monroe, Michigan.
So 18 grand they gave you.
And I paid $3,500 for it, and I probably put I put about, let's see, $900 back then was for the septic tank, and it cost me about $900 for a carpenter to put a pump house in. Cost me $200 to have it wired, you know, for $220 for the pump. So figure I had about, I'd say about $3,500 in it, with materials and everything. But it was first class. I had a shower, running water. I had a small little 20-gallon hot water tank. Because the place was narrow. My place, first place I bought, was 15 feet wide by 30 feet long. An old cabin. Then we divided the rooms in that and fixed it up, insulated it. It was great.
So you got a buyer on that, and then you use that money.
I made that profit. Yep. I made that profit and put it down payment, but I told you I was short. The guy wanted, I don't know, what the hell do you want? 10 grand down. I think he wanted $10,000 down or $12,000 down. And all I had saved up was $7,000, me and Grandma. Because the kids were in school, you know, we didn't save a lot of money. And cops never made a lot of money. They're doing better now, but the old days I didn't. But anyway, I was $5,000 short, and I told you a story. You know, Grandma wouldn't ask her parents. I said, hey, maybe your mom and dad would loan us the money. You know. No, I don't want to ask them.
Loan the money on at this extra place. So you guys were living in Trenton, so she felt
I lived in Trenton.
She felt uncomfortable saying, "Hey, could we have some money to buy a place up north?"
She was funny that way. You know, she hated to ask people for anything. That's why, you mind if I ask them? She said, no, go ahead. So I asked him one day. We had him over for dinner. I said, hey, you know, we found some property. The guy wants $12,000 down. I said, all we got is $7,000. I said, you know, we'd like to borrow $5,000. What do you think? And Nona was the boss. Between her and Barney, she ran it. She says, well, before we make a decision, how about you taking us up there and show us the property? I said, okay. So I called the guy up, and Oscoda. I said, hey, I can't remember what the hell his name was. Tall German guy, blonde hair. His last name was Metzler, Metzler, Metzler. Because I made payments every month. I had to write a check to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had like a
So
journal.
you took Nona and Barney up there.
Yeah, for a day.
To visit.
We left at 8 o'clock in the morning. We didn't get back till 6. And it's a 3.5 hour ride one way. We were in the car for 7 hours. Because Barney was still working then. He had to get back to work Monday, and I think I had to get back to work Monday. So we went on a Sunday. I called him up. He says, yeah, come on over. You can look at the place. Because he had already moved out to the colonial next door. The place was vacant, but they had the heat on.
So what was that experience like? You guys got up there.
It was fun.
Yeah.
We had lunch in All Gray. Went up there. It was a beautiful sunny day. Probably, when did I buy that property? I think I got it, you know, like early fall or something. I think it was fall when we bought it. Anyway, we went over there and walked around, and Nona and Barney liked it. You know, it was 80 feet on the water, nice house, insulated, good drinking water, electricity, had a big garage on it. We loved the place, but in the wintertime, you know, Grandma said, hey, we'll never see the kids up here. You know, because everybody's working and they can't come up. They only came up in the summer for vacation. So we came out, and Grandma said, yeah. Nona said, yeah, we'll give you the kids the money. you know, she said, let me go to the bank. So I called Dum Dum up to sell. Okay.
We're 40 in.
I said, you know, I got the deposit. I'll get you a certified check and mail it to you. My attorney will handle all the paperwork, which cost me like $500. But it was worth it because it was a nice place. I hated to sell it.
So how long did you have that place?
About 6 years.
So that was like from the 80s to the early 90s?
Well, I bought it. Let's see. I bought Lake Columbia in '89. So we were out. We were out a year without a place to go to for summer. So I must have sold in '88, early '88. I sold it like in March.
Why? Do you remember that decision? Like, why did you
Yeah,
sell it?
because Grandma and I talked it over. You know, she didn't like it up there in the wintertime. She said, you know, most of the people up here drink and bar hop, and she said, we're not like that. I said, what do you think? She said, well, why don't we try to sell it and get something closer to Trenton? Back then, you know, we were in Trenton for 30-some years. So that's what happened. I went by myself in March, and I...
So you guys would hang out there, though, in the summertime. So
Oh,
did
yeah,
you have
we
a
loved
boat
it.
up
Oh,
there?
God, we loved it. We went in the wintertime. Joe and I were running. I bought a couple of... at an auction sale. I bet on 2 snowmobiles.
Did you I did not know that.
Yeah.
You had snowmobiles.
I only had them a couple of years. Towards the end of the 6 years. Yeah, we got a picture, Joe and I, and snow that deep with snow machines all bundled up with goggles, you know.
Oh, cool.
It was fun.
So did you take them on the lake when it froze
Yeah,
over?
him and I took him right on the lake and bummed around, you know. The lake was pretty long, but it was shallow. It wasn't real wide, you know. Like
And at that time you had no boats.
I had a boat.
What kind of boat?
I was working part-time. I bought that gold boat. You see the movies? Pictures? That
So you
speedboat?
bought that speedboat before
I had the speedboat before the property.
before Lake Columbia.
Yeah, because I was fishing out here in Lake Erie, and we'd go to dinner in Canada once in a while. There was a bar there that had excellent perch fry and chicken, roasted chicken, called Duffy's. I mean, it was Michigan, you know, renowned. It was really good. You can go there by boat.
So you would go there by boat?
Yeah, with wife and kids, we'd go by boat, have dinner.
From where?
From Trenton to Amherstburg, Ontario,
So you would take the boat from Trenton to
Canada
Across
for
the-
dinner and drinks and come
cool.
back. We did that for several years.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Your mom should remember that. That gold boat.
I remember that vividly.
Yeah, I've had. That's right. You were water skiing on it. Well, I had that thing about 20 years before I sold it. And the reason I sold it is because same thing. Times change. The kids didn't want to go. They're all working. They're busy. Grandma wasn't crazy about it. She'd rather have a pontoon boat. I said, no problem. I think I paid like $3,200 for it. It was only a year old when I got it. Brand
so
new.
you bought it
From a guy getting
for
divorced.
Oscoda, though, up there.
Yeah.
You were like, hey, we're on
Yep.
the lake. I want a boat up
Exactly, and I bought it for Oscoda.
here. Did you guys water ski up there in Oscoda?
That's where I learned to water ski in Oscoda.
So,
A lot of memories, man.
yeah. So, who started you guys water skiing? You just the culture up there? You saw
Just
other
the
people
culture.
doing it?
Everybody's water skiing.
Yeah.
Now maybe Kenny went with, or Lynn, or Lori. Lori hung around with a girl from Trenton. That their parents had property on a lake up around Midland, Michigan, which is by Bay City. Maybe Lori started us on that.
And you got into it too?
But I got into it too. I said, hell, you guys are skiing. I want to ski. We got Grandma a couple times, but she didn't like it. Now, one summer we took Marianne up there, and she caught on real quick.
So was that similar to the cabin? You guys were up there often in
Yep.
Oscoda. In Oscoda.
Yep. During the summer, we were up there every 2 weeks. In fact, my neighbor next door would remark, "Man, it looks like, hey Bernie, all you do is work your butt off." That's his name was Doug, Douglas Metzler. That's the guy I bought her from on a land contract. I says, yeah, but guess what? I really enjoy being up here from the city.
Oh, why did he say you work you work
Because we're cutting grass. We painted the place.
Oh, okay.
He had it like a barn, dark red, like a barn type of paint.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma and I didn't like that. So we rode around. There was a golf course right near where I was at in Ascota. And there was a house back in there that had like a kind of a blue-gray walls with dark blue shutters. And she liked that. So I went on the door. She says, what did you do? I said, I'm going to ask the lady what kind of paint that is. You like it so well? Because I was easier than Grandma was.
Mhm.
Grandma was like her mother, very exact, you know. I don't like this, I like that. So I went to ask the lady, I said, excuse me, I said, we were riding around, we just love the colors that you have here. Can you tell me what paint and what the name of the paint was called? Color called? Yeah, no problem. She says, I think I got it here somewhere. So I waited by the inside. She asked me, and Grandma was in the car. I still remember that. And these homes were on a golf course. And your dad should remember that. He was up there. Anyway, she gave it to me and wrote it down. And
So you guys fixed that place up a lot too.
next spring, we're painting. Joe and I and Grandma.
So yeah, did Joe and Lynn come often? Oh man, they drove from
Kitchener.
all the way up there.
Yeah. That's when Grandma said, this ain't gonna work. As we got older, she said, you know, we retire up here. Summer was beautiful, you know, jumping, a couple of good bars there, had a good fish fry on Fridays. Had a Kmart up there, Grandma loved Kmart,
Mhm.
so did Joyce Early. So we had good 6 years up there that we enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
But
that's
then as we got older, in my late 50s, I got tired of driving. I used to love to drive, but it wore me out. Between that Crystal Mountain property and Ascota, it wore me out.
I bet. Yeah.
I was on the road in the summer twice a month. I'd go
How long was the drive from Trenton to Cedar Lake up there?
3.5, sometimes 4 in the summer with traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot every other week.
Well, we'd get up there Friday night, we'd go to fish fry, get up Saturday, start working, painting. Grandma Mary Ann fixed had like a little vestibule where they had the washer dryer on one side, and that side there was a big pantry with my hot water tank, I remember. And everything was electric up there, which I didn't like. Electric
Why?
heat. I don't know, I didn't like it. It was very expensive. Because that one winter I left the heat on, like on 50. Hell, I got a bill not be like $250, and I'm not even living there just to heat it. So next winter we just closed it down. I talked to a couple guys up there, and they told me how to winterize it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you drain all the water out.
Right, right.
I had to hire a guy to put shut-offs underneath the house so I could drain the water, because it was all sand, you know, cross space. I learned a lot.
Yeah, so and then you sold that place in 88, and then
Yeah, I think we made like 32,000 on that property.
you made money on
Profit, yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I told you.
And then that was the down payment.
And we put that in the bank. I had 50,000 in the bank at one time in my life. Like a dummy, I want to be on the lake.
Mhm. So
So we started looking down here to
yeah,
follow
why Lake
after I sold
Columbia
it.
though? You know, like what was the
Well,
why that area?
by then I was in my late 50s, probably, I was probably 57, 56 when I bought that lake property. And it just happened, the guy I used to be friends with, a guy by the name of John Asper, he bought a place when he retired over on Sand Lake. And he heard me talking about looking for lake property.
Oh, so he guided you out in that
He's the one who
direction.
told me about
Yeah.
Lake Columbia. He said, oh, a lot of big, rich homes there. He said, you got to look into that. And one thing led to another. We did. We went there. I think we started looking in the fall. Because Grandma and I took a picnic basket. And I think the first trip we went with, Ed and Mary Ann came with us. And you know that park, you know where I'm at, that park kitty corner across the water there, that's the first time we stopped in there. Nobody checked us, picnic table, shade. So we sat there a couple hours, watching the boats, all the grass was cut, nice place.
Yeah.
Because one thing, there's two things on the water you gotta remember. Cottage homes and regular living homes. Most of the lakes in Irish Hills are cottage homes. They only come up for the summer. Winter, nothing. Lake Columbia wasn't like that. It was just the opposite. Most of the people were full-time people, and only 30% were cottage owners, which is what we liked about it.
Because that's what you guys wanted to do. You were like, this is where we're going to
Well,
live.
because we were talking about retiring and moving on the water. So we wanted the house. And we looked at a couple, and it took us about over a year to look. The lady would call me up, hey, I found another one here listening. I'd run up there, and a couple of times your mom came with me. Well, she was with me when we found this place. We found this in January, and I've been looking all summer. Couldn't come up anything we liked. A couple places we liked. We went downstairs. There was a smell for mildew. And boy, that was a big turnoff. Grandma says, no way. That's a bad sign, mildew in the basement. So we'd pass them up. And this one came up. In fact, we were ready to come home. Your dad was there that day, I think. We were trying to look at a house. The lady got the keys mixed up, so your dad climbed it on this porch and was looking through the window. I have to show you that. Take a boat ride.
On Lake Columbia?
Yeah, on that side by Stump Bay,
okay.
but it was
Yeah.
in a bay, not on the main lake. It was on a little bay, and I didn't care for that. There was no view. You're looking at Stump Bay, you know what I mean? Where I'm talking about, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the trip. That woman said, hey, there's another one. I got the keys for that one. She said, it's clear across the lake. But she said, just follow me. She said, you can take a look at it while you're here. That's how we found it in the wintertime. So we went over there, and, I like the driveway. You know how you come off that hill.
Mm-hmm.
And all the front was brick. The sides were partly brick. The back is partly brick. Grandma loved to cut brick. And we walked inside, and I got a couple of pictures where she's there like this.
Oh, really?
Like a dump, this is a dump. But it had possibilities. So that's how we talked about it, If we bought it, we'd have to fix it up. So I bought it before I retired. I think 3 years before I retired.
So you were driving from...
I go on weekends from Trenton.
Oh, you still lived in
Because in the
Trenton.
meantime, I got promoted.
Yeah.
And when I got promoted, I had steady days. I had Saturday, Sundays off. So we'd shoot up there and on Fridays and, do some work and bum around. I think the first summer we were there, or it was maybe the second summer, we didn't have a boat. I had that gold boat, speedboat. And, but I didn't bring it up. It was still in Trenton.
Oh, at first you didn't bring it up then?
No, the first year I didn't bring it up. So we were sitting there one time in maybe May. We went up there for Memorial Day. And I don't know, your dad should remember. They said something, we got to get some more groceries or something. I said, okay, we were just sitting having coffee, and they took off, and they weren't coming home, and they had it all set up to surprise me and Grandma. They had bought, 3 of them, chipped in, bought our first pontoon boat for us. We're sitting there, I don't know if it was Lori or Lynn said, come outside a minute. Kenny was already gone down south, and here comes Joe and Bill, brand new pontoon boat, pulling into our dock. I says, what? Surprise! We chipped in and bought you guys a boat, pontoon boat. And that's what Grandma loved. I remember that.
Yeah.
Just good memories.
You're right. Oh, okay, so...
And I was still working. I wasn't retired. The boat stood there, and we come on weekends. I did all the painting in there.
So you were working
I
as
hung
a,
up all the fans. We liked fans because we grew up with no fans. I mean, Olanders had no fans. Sabulas had no fans. Nobody had fans
yeah, as
back
a luxury, right?
then. But the fans came out then. I bought those at Sears Roebuck on sale.
So you and Graham were both working. You had the place in Trenton still. You were living in Trenton.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then you had sold Oscoda,
Yep.
made money,
And I bought this place.
and then you bought a place in.
Yeah.
So
I,
you
I
were.
bought it on a mortgage.
So
but
you.
I hadn't have enough money. I told you I had 50 grand savings. I put that down, and I was still short. So I had to borrow 30,000 from the bank, and they gave it to me. I filled out a form, and I had to submit a letter. Why do I want to live up here? Because they knew I was from Trenton. I was a cop in Trenton, and I was a Navy vet. They knew all that. So they asked me, why do you want to live up here? I said, well, my wife and I want to live on the water, and we chose to live up here. Well, we'll let you know, Mr. Olander. We have a board meeting. Next thing you know, I get a phone call about 5 days later, saying, you're approved. You can pick your check up anytime. So that was our mortgage.
So how often were you in Lake Columbia then? Frequently, when you were still living in Trenton. Did you go up there a lot over the summer?
No, in the winter time we didn't go up that much. I'd just go out, check it over, and come home. We didn't spend winters up there. But
a lot of
we
summers
did.
and.
Oh yeah, kids came up and partied down. And remember that, Bill, when you guys bought that first pontoon boat?
Oh, yeah.
He remembers.
I think Kenny was there too. We surprised you.
Was Kenny there?
Yep.
Okay, Kenny was there. But surprised the shit out of us because we had no extra money. Took us extra money to buy this place.
So then so you retired a couple years later. When did you retire? 90?
No, more than that. I bought that place in '89, April, I never forgot, April 15th, 1989, I bought that. I didn't move up there until May 1st, 1994. So we had that all those years. So we were using it as a cottage.
Oh.
But we had to fix it up. That's when we got all new carpeting and,
So it was a cottage for 5 years.
it was a cottage for us for 5 years.
And then you sold the place. So we stayed there I lived there, though, when
you saw the movie.
in 92 or 93.
Well, look at that little shorty when she was born walking. Her first steps were in my living room downstairs, family room.
Mm-hmm.
I was deer hunting in November. And she was born January, right? November, I come from Sabula's Gaylord. Just come in about 5 o'clock. Your mom said, Dad, we got something to show you. So they all sat there. I said, what? Mackenzie, she puts Mackenzie by the fireplace. And she said, you sit here on the steps. So I'm sitting on the steps. She said, Dad, watch this. And here's old Shaky. I still remember that. She's wobbling, walking though. She walked over me, big smile.
Mm-hmm.
Her big eyes. Just super memories. Yeah, in the meantime, they bought that property. Right here. It was an empty lot.
And
That tree out there?
Do you remember
I got that from the city of Trenton. My buddy worked for the DPW, putting trees. And he liked cops. Mr. O, you want a tree? I said, hell yeah. He said, I'll drop one off tonight for you. It's about 10, 12 feet when I got it, skinny. Look at it now.
So was that? Do you remember?
I remember that.
Do you remember being sad about having to sell your Trenton house?
Yeah.
So
That
that
was one
like,
of the few times I saw Grandma cry when we were leaving.
Really?
Yeah, when we had to say goodbye to the house.
Because
She
how long had you lived there?
I don't know.
Roughly, like.
Oh, shit. I got out of the Navy in 59. I was in the Navy for 3 years, 56 to 59. I got in October. And
10 minutes breakfast.
anyway, we bought the house it was brand new. And we sold it in 94, 30-some years. I was a cop for 33.
Oh, so over 30 years.
And I was,
you guys
yeah,
lived
I
there.
was a cop in that house. Because Grandma and I first got married, we were in an apartment, nice place in south side of Wyandotte. But she got pregnant, and the lady that
Right,
and
right,
husband
yeah.
didn't want no babies. So we started looking for a house.
So you were in that place for over 30 years.
Yep.
And that's when you sold it, and Graham was upset about, or
She was
not-
crying. First time I've only saw her crying a couple times when her dad died, and when she was leaving that house, she had tears. That's what's the matter. She's oh, honey, we had so many memories here, and she was sobbing a little bit. She said, I hate to leave. I said, I know, hon, but we're starting a new life on the lake.
Yeah.
But that was the only time. But she took it more than I did.
Yeah, you were. I mean, what was your feeling? You sold
Oh,
that
I was,
place. I mean,
I was happy to be on the water.
so you were more optimistic than sad.
more
about-
optimistic
yeah.
and excited than she was. She liked being on the water and she liked the area, but she missed her friends. She had two good friends, Mary Ann and that Marilyn Lettner, our ex-neighbors that we knew when we bought our first house. We paid $12,000 for our first house and sold it for $12,500. Well, the market, we wanted the money, and I need money for this house, and house was brand new, so I got a GI loan, which was like 3% interest back then.
And then you guys moved permanently to
Yeah,
Lake Columbia.
yeah, we hired a moving company. They moved all our stuff, set everything up. I met them over there. Grandma didn't go. Grandma was still working at the time when we moved our furniture. So I came up to Lake Columbia, and, told them with the bedrooms here, this bedroom there, and couch over here, and stuff like that.
And do you remember? So you didn't have to do a lot at that time when you moved in, because you guys had been fixing it up.
Oh yeah, we got
You
fixing
had been
it up.
fixing
Oh
it
yeah,
up over
because
the
it was
years.
never painted. The
But
house.
you moved it, like you bought it, and then over those 5 or 6 years you had owned it, you had fixed it up over that time. So it was ready.
The way we wanted it.
Yeah, it was ready
she
to
wanted
move
green
into.
carpeting.
Right.
We got that. She wanted the linoleum, in the kitchen. And that's all original from '94. But like I say, we got rid of the green carpeting just last year. Your mom and I. Because Grandma loved that green.
I know, I like that. I have a distinct, that's in my memory.
See? I know. But life changes, I hated to do it, but it was time. Get a new look.
All right, we're done.